Hello, this is episode 6.2. I think that's what I decided to name it. I know I did cover quite a few important events from my age 6, but there's a couple more really important events that I didn't want to miss. So, like I said a few times, uh, India went through a sea change during our time, my generation's time. So by the time I was a teenager, it was a developing country, but when I was very little, it actually was a pretty poor country. Um, the like I said, the suburb where we lived in, the road was not even paved; it was a dirt road, and it was one of the nicer suburbs. There were plots all around, houses were getting built. There was so little traffic on the main road. Uh, Literally, it was desolate. So much so that I explained in one of the episodes. We used to even have dacoities and robberies, nighttime robberies. It was that desolate. And on the main road, the vehicles maybe every 3 minutes, one vehicle would pass by. It was pretty outskirts and hard to believe. These days, you can't even get by an inch without, it's like bumper to bumper traffic jam in that area where I used to live. It's hard to believe. It was very residential and very desolate, actually. So, when the tar road was laid in front of our home, it was a big deal. And the other big deal of the nation progressing was we heard an announcement from that whole suburb that we lived in, Medipatnam, that they were going to build a movie theater in there. This was a very big deal for us because until then, to watch movies, we had to go very far off to Abbott's or, Koti or Kachiguda. Those were all those areas of the city. We had to go travel very far off. So it was a very big deal for us, for our whole locality, for the whole suburb, that there was a movie theater going to be built. Most excited was my dad because even till his last days, whenever India or the neighborhood or the country or the locality, or he loved progress. He himself was progressive, but he loved progress, economic progress, especially of the country. So he was very, very excited. In fact, he read it somewhere in the newspaper and he came and told all of us. Then from then on, it became a ritual for us, just my dad and I, after he picked me up from school or anywhere. If it was just the both of us, we'd take a little detour and go check out that plot of land where the movie theater was going to be built. He was very curious. And first they laid the foundation, and then the building, the inner structure, then the parking lot. Each day by day, then they added a gate. Day by day, we used to get more and more excited about it. And my dad couldn't wait when they would actually release a movie there. So eventually the theater came up. It was named Amba Theater. We were all of us in our suburb were very proud of it. And Amba means mother in Indian language, many Indian languages. And I still remember in the facade of the theater building was a lady with a Indian lady in Indian garb in a sari with a big bindi, and it was almost like a 3D effect where there's a 3D figure of the lady coming a little bit out of the building like this across on the entire face of the building. You can suppose she was representing Amba. We were very excited. Then we heard the news that the movie that was going to be released there was called Mr. Natwarlal. Now, this was a big hyped up movie because when I was born, there was another movie that was had similar theme of basically a hero and dacoits, and it's in an area called Chambal where the dacoits raid the villages, and then the hero eventually overcomes them. So this movie was called Sholay, and it was a very big hit. But this was many years ago when I was born, and I did watch it as a baby, but I think it was so violent that my mother covered my eyes most of the time, and I was only 1 year old, I think, when I watched it. I don't remember much of it except that a couple of scenes which were very gruesome in my little baby's mind. So everybody was anticipating because they thought this would be the next big Sholay. The movie hero and heroine were Amitabh Bachchan and Rekha, and who were a top hit pair at that during that time. They had a couple of hit movies, and there were two hit pairs. One was Dharmendra Hema Malini, and the other one was this Amitabh Bachchan and Rekha. So we were so eager to see it, and the movie was also hyped up, and everybody was in anticipation. The other special thing about this movie was in that Amitabh Bachchan had sung a song for the very first time in his own voice. So everybody was curious to see that. My dad loved movies. He and I had made a lot of plans to, go to this movie at this new theater the day it opened. So he was eagerly looking forward to seeing it. My mother was not that much interested in movies. And the main reason for that being she hardly got any time with my dad. My dad was a very busy man. He worked for a private company. He was doing very well. He was in a busy job, big job, with a lot of responsibilities. And he used to come home pretty late in the evening. The one thing we did enjoy, all of us enjoyed as a family, is as soon as he came home, because he would come late, we'd go for a drive. That my mother enjoyed, but she would fall asleep in the middle. But she still enjoyed it. And my father used to jokingly, I don't know if my mother liked it, used to call my mother 10 to 10. And we all used to tease her because she couldn't stay awake beyond 10 minutes to 10. 9:50 was her maximum staying up late power. But my dad and my brother and I used to stay up late till 10:30, 11 also. And then my dad would give my brother and me Bonvita to drink. That was his ritual, and I never liked Bonvita, but somehow I used to like taking it from him. I didn't like milk. I liked Bonvita. And then he would sing us a lot of lullabies, which is, I realize now it's so unusual, right, for dads, till we fell asleep. So I would sleep next to him or in his tummy and, lie down next to him, and my brother and he would sing a lot of lullabies. And these were all British lullabies that he had heard in his childhood. They were all English lullabies. But he would, there was one especially that's, my Bonnie lies over the ocean. My Bonnie lies over the shore, or something like that. So he would translate that to Hindi and sing, O Annu Meri Munni Soja, O Soja Re Babu Re Soja Re Babu, Soja Re Babu Re So. This one is My Bonnie Lies Over the Ocean. And when he used to take us to park, my brother and I, he would put us on each side of a seesaw. And he would also sing that British, some rhyme, seesaw, Marjorie saw, Jenny has a new job, or she shall get a penny a day, but she can't swing any longer. Something like that, okay? These are very special memories, and he was very special in that record, in that regard. So he used to put us to sleep because my mom was very tired by the time she couldn't sustain after a while. So the little time they had, she didn't want to, waste seeing a movie. She used to have some very specific topics that she loved seeing. So she would always ask, "Is there violence in the movie?" She was not interested if it was violence and a masala movie. But she asked, "What is the movie about?" So my dad told her it'll be like Sholay, it'll have some violence, and she was not interested. So my dad didn't want to leave her out and come with me. So he was disappointed, but he didn't want to, make her feel bad by showing his disappointment. I was very, very disappointed that I could not see, because my dad and I made so many plans to see this movie. And we were really excited about it. But luckily for me, the family across the street, the Christian family, Arun and Munni, so Arun was a big fan of Amitabh Bachchan. So he wanted to see this movie. I didn't like Amitabh Bachchan that much. Now I do, but back then I didn't. But I wanted to see it for the novelty of, it was the first movie theater, first day, such a big movie. So I was hoping they would take me, but I didn't know how to tell them. But somehow they themselves asked. They asked me and they asked Kumar, the guy next door. They told our parents, we'll take them, but you have to pay for the ticket. My mom didn't want to disappoint me. She was actually glad that I could still get to see the movie. So she paid for my ticket, and Kumar's mom paid for Kumar's ticket, and this Dr. Edwin was their family, was his dad's name. So this Edwin family, we went with them to see this Mr. Natwarlal in Amba Theatre. Very exciting experience. The movie was okay, so. But I loved the part where Amitabh sings the song, and it's up for little kids. And it goes, "Mere paas aao mere doston ek kissa suno." And I thought, my God, this guy sings like my dad. I'd never seen a singing hero singing to the kids until then, I had not seen it. I'm sure there are some movies, but I just felt like this guy's like my dad. He sings to kids and is telling them stories. So that was the most exciting part for me in that movie. So then we came home and the country was progressing. So then one large, big event happened. So what happened is, during this period, my family, my aunts and uncles, my amama and tataya, and my nuclear family of my mom and dad, we had a fallout with their family. A very big fallout. I don't want to go into details of what caused it. It was something, ego related on both sides. But anyway, they had a fallout. So our family stopped talking to their family. Okay. And this went on for months. But that's not what I want to emphasize on. So during this period, there was a big event that happened. That historic event that kind of had an impact on me as a child. Okay. And on our families too, interestingly. So everybody in our family remembers why they had the fallout or that they had the fallout. But nobody remembers how we started talking to each other again. But I remember. And this is the most interesting story ever. And it's a true story. And it's amazing. It's amazing for me. How life can pan out, or why we started talking again. So what happened was, during this time, there came news that NASA had put several, but this was a big one, space labs, satellites, or labs actually, in space to do research and all that. So this was called Skylab. I think there was a Skylab 1, 2, 3, 4 or whatever, but we just knew of it as Skylab. Okay, so the big space station. So what we started hearing in the news, and it became a big deal all over the world, was that Skylab had started slowly spinning, little bit getting out of control of its orbit. And scientists predicted that it would disintegrate very soon. And we heard this news, I think, few weeks, several weeks actually, before the actual disintegration happened. Several weeks, maybe like 8 to 12 weeks, about 2-3 months before we heard it, 2 months before. That it would disintegrate and but not to tiny, tiny pieces. It was a huge, like, I don't know however many tons. It was a big space station. It would fall on the earth. And everybody was very worried about the impact. No matter how much it disintegrated, the debris would still be very large. And it could cause some serious damage, serious destruction, depending on where it fell. So this was a big talk in the news, and we were all informed of it. Everybody knew of it. So as kids, we were told of it. My parents, my dad especially, was very much into news, his newspaper. So we were informed, everybody became informed. It used to come in the radio everywhere. So then something unexplainable happened to me. As a child, I wanted an answer for this. Then what came in the news is that the NASA scientists were somehow, through the controlling and through their, various science experiments, they were trying to maneuver the lab. I mean, it was a given that it was going to fall on Earth. They were going to maneuver the lab into the southern Indian Ocean. I was told this also. By this time, I knew a little bit of geography. Like, we had a globe at home that my mother purchased. My father showed me like where it was. By this time, I had little knowledge of countries, India being a little bit of a poor developing country. There was a USA. We knew it was a very rich country, and we knew the Skylab belonged to US. So the question that I had as a kid that nobody could answer, maybe there was a scientific reason for it, but I felt very bad when I heard this news. So I felt my main issue with this, angry. I felt angry. Even as a child, I felt angry. I was almost 7. I was not quite, just about to turn 7. So what I was angry about is I felt this is a rich country. America is a rich country. Everybody knew that. I felt, why couldn't they maneuver this aircraft? First of all, why should the rest of the world pay for something that they put in the air? I felt it was unfair. Okay, that's okay. They couldn't predict, they didn't guess, I guess. But now that it was falling down into the earth, I felt bad. Why were they trying to maneuver it into the Indian Ocean? Why not Atlantic Ocean? Or why not Pacific Ocean? I'm sure there's a scientific reason for it, but nobody was able to explain the scientific reason to me. So I felt bad. I felt that they were protecting their own country and targeting some poor countries who wouldn't raise a hue and cry. Because Southern Indian Ocean, there were all these Asian countries, poorer countries like Indonesia, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, and India, of course. So we would be, if little they were not successful in their maneuvering, if they were aiming towards Southern Indian Ocean, where would the space station fall? It would fall in one of these poor countries who just had to take it. So we were told that there is a high likelihood that the debris would fall on one of these countries. I felt very bad and unfair about it. And again, like I said, maybe there's a scientific reason why they chose Southern Indian Ocean, some orbital or whatever, but nobody gave me the scientific reason, and I felt they chose this to protect themselves. I felt very unfair. But anyways, we all were prepared that the Skylab was going to fall. And as the date approached, they even could predict the day that it was going to fall and a window of about 4 to 6 hours when it would make impact on the earth. Okay. And we were also told that there's a high likelihood that it would fall in India. Okay. As the date approached, I remember we kids, we used to play games. Arun would act like the Skylab and he would say, I'm Skylab and coming to hit you, and we would all run away and hide. And Whenever there's a noise, a plane roaring too close by, we would look up in the air and we would think the Skylab is falling. We were so scared. And we'd always wonder how we would protect ourselves, because we are also told that if it falls, it might cause destruction in a large area of the city. So finally, they predicted that so and so date it's going to fall, and so time. After they predicted that, 2 days before, my dad had just joined Herbert Sons then. He was in charge of the marketing thing. And my dad was oh my God, he was a marketing genius. And it feels bad to say this, but basically his company used to market, he used to work for a very big brewery, United Breweries. He was the marketing head for their office. So what my dad predicted is, he came to know of this Skylab thing, and he said, if it hits, it's destruction, it's a done deal. But suppose it doesn't hit, then there'll be a lot of people celebrating that night. So he was such a genius. He had his own forecasting and replenishment module in his head. So he predicted that the demand for certain types of alcohol for partying would increase that night. So proactively he convinced his heads to proactively stock up more inventory than normal. And he was very passionate about this plan of his. Everybody thought he was like, what a risk taker this guy is. Like, people could die here and he's thinking of this. But he was like that. He was a marketing genius. So it was very important for him to make sure that he was there in office working to deliver to this plan. And it was very important for him to go to work somehow that day. So I want to remind you of the fact that we hadn't talked to my Amama's family for several months. This was a big fallout. We didn't talk, they didn't talk. But 2 days before this, when finally the day came out, this conversation happened, and it was so short. Even my mom and dad may not remember it. But it left a big impact in my head about what a nice couple, what a great couple, understanding couple my mom and dad were. My mother, anyway, the fallout was because my dad got hurt actually about something. So my mother told my father, on the day that the Skylab is going to fall, I'd like to take the kids and be with my parents. I'd like to go there. I'd like to let bygones be bygones. And as a child, I was listening to this conversation, and I thought my dad will lose it. My dad will be very angry, because when that fallout happened, my dad was in a big temper. But my dad fully supported my mom. This conversation hardly lasted for a minute, less than a minute. And he said, yeah, you should do that. That's what you should do. So he said, yeah, I'll drop you in the morning. Go to your parents, take the kids, and that's where you should be. He was fully supportive. And then my dad said, but I'd like to go to work that day. And literally this whole conversation lasted only for 5 seconds. And now I was observing my mother. My mother always complained that my dad never spent any time with her. He gave a lot of priority to his work. And I thought she will really get hurt. Because, it was like almost like this could be the end of the world, right? But my mother said, yeah, you should do that. Drop me and go to work. It's a big day for you. That's all, 2-second conversation. And I thought how these two individuals with such different priorities were not only tolerating but encouraging each other's priorities in perfect sync. This is something I felt any couple should learn from them. It's not about adjustment or compromise. You should be in a position to support the other person's need over yours. So it's something to be learned from them. Anyways, but I was very thrilled that my mom and all would be on talking terms again. So nobody remembers, but Skylab brought us together, brought the two families together. So on the day it was going to fall, all of us, my dad left. My Amama's family welcomed us with open arms. My second uncle used to live somewhere else. He came. My third uncle was there. He was not yet married. My youngest aunt was there. She was also not yet married. My Amama, my Tataya, me, my brother, my mother. We all sat in Vijayanagar colony in the room. We turned on the radio. I guess I should have been scared, but I was just happy that my two families were together, that my mom made this call. And then we listening, then Skylab was falling. And finally we got the news that most of the debris fell into the Indian Ocean. We were thrilled as can be. But a little part of the debris chunk fell in Western Australia. I think it's Western Australia. That's closer to the Indian Ocean, yes. Somewhere near Perth or something like that. But nobody was hurt in Australia. It fell into, luckily nobody was hurt. Maybe the debris was not big enough, or maybe lives were not lost. But maybe some damage was there. So after that, we all came onto the street in Vijayanagar colony. Everybody was yelling, saying, Skylab has fallen, Skylab has fallen, Skylab has fallen. And my youngest uncle, my Kiran Moya, actually went, and to celebrate, he got sweets, and there was a mirchi bhaji store. My mom loved mirchi bhajis. So we were not a very sweet tooth family. So all other families got sweets, but we got mirchi bhajis. And we ate mirchi bhajis with my mama and tataya. It was a blast. And I think as predicted, my dad was right. There was a lot of sales from his office. And United Brewery, they made a lot of sales that night. A lot of people partied, So it was all good. And this happened sometime like a month before my birthday. And as you know, by this time I was big into birthdays after that first 4-year-old birthday fiasco. And guess what was the shape of my birthday when I turned 7? It was Skylab. We asked the birthday cake to be in the Skylab. So this guy didn't even know. So he made like a rocket and he wrote Skylab in it in grey. I was so thrilled because I was convinced that Skylab brought my family together. Another thing I heard, I think I heard this when I actually grew up, or maybe a little bit few years or few months later. I heard that, Australia, or that city in Australia, or Australia itself, it sued NASA because it was not their fault because of the debris falling in Australia. So then I felt, it would be nice to be in a developing country. Look how Australia didn't let NASA get away with it. Whereas we Indians, like in a developing country, we just had to, depend on our fate. If it fell on us, we would have just perished. But anyway, all's well that ends well. So what I learned from this experience is, when you get your priorities right, suddenly when you realize that, you might not see the next day. None of us know when we are going to perish, right? We assume that we're all going to go in the order that we come. But maybe the decisions that we make, maybe the priorities that we have would be different if we knew ahead of time that, we were not going to, tomorrow might be our last day or day after tomorrow might be the last day. So my only advice would be like, I'm glad my parents and my Amama's family got start talking because of Skylab, but don't don't take life too seriously, and have your priorities right, and don't sweat the small stuff. There's a lot bigger things that could happen, like the end of the world, but it never happened. So I thought that's an interesting story to tell. So see you next time.